Everyone knows the story of Titanic. It happened on April 15, 1912, when a giant ship called Titanic sank into the cold waters of the Atlantic Ocean, taking 1,517 human lives with it. It was the largest and most magnificent ship ever built by mankind. Its demise was one of the greatest disasters of the 20th century. But few people know that there is one terrific story connected to the sinking of Titanic that Hollywood refused to include in its famous movie Titanic, the story of a brave pastor named John Harper. John Harper was born in Scotland and was the great evangelist of his day, converting thousands of people to Jesus. At the age of 25, he was already pastoring a small church of 30 people, which later grew to 500 in a short time. In 1912, John was invited to preach in a famous church in Chicago. So, on April 11th of that year, he boarded Titanic with his 6-year-old daughter to sail to America. His wife had died a few years earlier. There were big businessmen, famous British families and other important people on this unsinkable ship. From the very beginning, John began to walk the ship and talk to people about Jesus. On the evening of April 14th, when most people were dancing in the ballroom and were playing cards, John put his daughter to bed and began to pray. At 11:40 p.m., Titanic collided with an iceberg and got a hole. The ship began to sink slowly. When the passengers realized the reality of what was happening, panic ensued on the ship. Hearing the sound of a siren, John woke his daughter, wrapped her in a blanket and went up to the upper deck. Seeing everything that was going on, he kissed his daughter goodbye and handed her to a crew member who put John's daughter in the rescue boat number 11. John realized that he would never see his daughter again, who from the age of 6 would be an orphan. He gave his life jacket to the passenger standing next to him, leaving himself no chance of survival. John had no time to think. That is why he immediately began evangelizing to the panicked people running. Eyewitnesses said they saw a young man approaching people and asking them one question: "Is your soul saved?" As life faded around him and the orchestra played Nearer, My God, to Thee, John glowed brighter and brighter, fulfilling his God-given calling. On April 15, 1912, at 2:40 a.m., as Titanic began to go underwater, John jumped into the cold water of the Atlantic Ocean. More than 1,000 people, unable to fit into lifeboats, were floundering in the icy water. Soon John managed to find some wreckage from the ship. Grabbing it, the pastor began to swim up to the people and ask them the same question: "Is your soul saved?" Eventually, as people were already freezing from the cold, John moved even faster. In the midst of all the chaos and screaming, he was guiding people to Jesus. John Harper died as he lived, with one name on his lips: Jesus Christ. A few years after these tragic events in the Canadian city of Hamilton, at a church service, a man named Aguila Webb related an interesting testimony. "I am one of 6 people who survived in the waters of the Atlantic on that terrible night when the Titanic sank and 1,517 people were frozen to death or were swallowed by the cold waters of the ocean. As I was floundering in the water, amidst the cries and groans of people, a man shouted to me from afar, 'Is your soul saved?' I told him, 'No.' But suddenly a wave covered that person, and he went underwater. After a while, he surfaced and again shouted to me in a weak voice, 'Is your soul saved?' I answered, 'No.' Then in response to me he shouted, 'Believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and you will receive salvation.' Again, a big wave covered him, so he went underwater, and I did not see him again. There, in the cold waters of the Atlantic, I reconciled to God, crying out for mercy." Summarizing his testimony, Webb said, "I am the last fruit of Pastor John Harper. How much today's world reminds us of Titanic. Meaningless and bustle, worries, busyness, pride. But, despite the fact that everything looks beautiful and stable, there is one problem: a hole. Sooner or later, we will all be in eternity. We can hustle and party, while someone like the pastor fulfills his calling by preaching to the lost. And when we get to eternity, it would be good to see people come up and say, 'I believed in Jesus because of your testimony to me.' Every obstacle is a barrier, is a springboard, is a chance to go up. It's an opportunity. Keep your hands up, move forward. The most important example is Jesus Christ. Always keep your eyes on him. He used the most unfavorable moment in his life, the moment of execution and death, to do what no one else could do. He defeated all the enemies of mankind, the devil, death, sin, and hell. Christ rose from the dead. Today we have this victory if we believe in him and if we are part of a living church. Only in the church can we have the mindset of an overcomer and learn to act as an overcomer. Stay with us. There are many more qualities of a successful person ahead of us. See you soon, dear friends.